Hi everybody, this is Tim from the Bicycle Sport Shop, coming to you today to show you how to change a flat tire. So we're going to start out with a wheel here. It's already been taken off the bike, and first thing I want to do is go ahead and take off, if it's a Presta valve, take off the nut and cap if you got them on there. Just get those out of the way. And then I'll go ahead and undo the Presta valve itself, give it a couple turns just to get any residual air out of there as we're going to take off the wheel. If it's a Schrader, you can just use your fingernail and press on the valve. Again, get any residual air out of there. It's just going to help us get the tire off. Next thing you're going to want to do is you're actually going to want to pop the bead of the tire off. And so basically all we're going to do is push with our thumbs, and a lot of times the bead will already be popped, but sometimes you'll hear an audible pop. And so the bead of the tire sticks into the rim, and that's what keeps it in place. And we want to go ahead and just push that off, and we'll go around the wheel and just make sure that that is released, and that's just going to help us get the tire off a lot easier. Next thing we're going to do is grab our tools. Tire levers. I like to have at least 2 of them. They come in handy. They do come in sets of 2 or 3 usually, something like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to pry the tire off of the rim. Now we're going to use the thin part of the tire lever, and we're just going to go in between the rim and the tire. We're going to get underneath the bead, and we're just going to pop it out like so. And you'll see the end of the lever underneath the tire, and then that'll be the first pull. Now some tires are a lot harder, and you'll notice that most tire levers either have a hook or some kind of portion of it where you can hook it onto a spoke and hold it in place like so. Then you can go through and use your other lever and pry underneath that section, and then you can push however far you can, even if it's just to one more spoke, and then you can go back, grab your other lever, and you can do this all the way around the wheel if you need to. Some tires are harder than others. In this instance, this is a pretty average tire. It's not tubeless or anything like that. Tubeless tires tend to be a lot tighter. And then what we can do with this one is we can just go ahead and push all the way around until the bead is off all along one side. Now we don't have to take the tire all the way off to change it flat. Some people will do that. Sometimes if it's a little looser, it will come all the way off. That's okay. In this instance, we're going to leave one side of the tire on. So next thing we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pull the tube out. So what I like to do is start at the opposite end of the valve, and I'll just reach into the tire itself, and you can just pull the tube straight out all the way around. Like so. And then once you get to the valve, you just pull the tire back a little bit, and then you can push up on the valve. It comes right out. Now, one thing I do like to do is I like to keep the tube in the same orientation that it came out. I'll hang it on the saddle, hang it on the handlebars, and why I do that is in case I can't find what gave me the flat while inspecting the tire, I can go back to the tube, see where the hole is, and just give that area a double look. So next thing we want to do is inspect the tire. We'll do an outside inspection, we'll do an inside inspection, and we'll try and see what the cause of our flat was. I always like to start at the valve hole, and that way it gives me a start and stop point. So we'll go through, and what we're looking for is any kind of large cuts, debris like pieces of glass, sharp rocks, staples, nails, anything that could have given us a flat. If there is a suspect area, you can go ahead and use your fingers and inspect on the inside, but we'll do that, a full inspection on the inside as well. So we'll go all the way around, and you can look on the inside of the rim and you can see the valve hole and know that you've done a full round. Next thing we're going to do is look at the inside. Now I usually like to carry a pair of nitrile gloves with me, and then a small rag, even a small piece of t-shirt, because we are going to want to get inside the tire and check for any debris or anything like that. You don't want to cut your fingers. So go ahead, in this instance I'm just going to use my fingers, and we're just going to run our fingers all the way through the inside of the tire, feeling for anything sharp, again, looking on the outside as well again. If you do find something, you're going to need to pull it out. Sometimes that's easier said than done. Use whatever you can to pull out that object. If it's a sharp piece of rock or glass, sometimes you can actually pinch the tire itself, and that helps expose the item, then you can pull it out. But we're going to go all the way along, feeling for whatever gave us that flat. At this point, if you do not know what gave you the flat, this is where you can go back to the tube, your old tube, the flat tube. You can air it up and you can look for a hole, and then you can use the orientation that you took it out, go back to the rim, and do a closer inspection of that area. If you still don't find it, well, it could have just fallen out. You got a flat, that item fell out, and as long as there's no major damage to the tire, you're good to go. Now, if you do have some damage to the tire, a big cut or something like that, just throwing a new tube in there isn't going to be enough. You're going to have to reinforce that tire, or maybe call it for a ride home. Just depends on how bad it is. You can use your old tube, cut it up, and use that as a tire boot, and that'll reinforce that tire, at least let you get home. So use whatever you have. Make sure you can keep riding. All right, so we inspected the tire. Let's just say we found a thorn, pull that thorn out. We're good to go. We can throw our new tube in there. So what I like to do with new tubes is they come flattened up and rolled up, and there's no air in them. I like to get at least a little bit of air in there, just so there's a round shape to it, and that's going to help us get the tube in there. You can use a hand pump, frame pump, a little bit of CO2, but you really want to save the CO2 if you only have one of those for your full inflation. You can use your mouth on a Presta. You can just blow it up a little bit. You just need a little bit, not much. Schraders are a little harder. Hopefully you have a hand pump. You can just give it a little bit of shape. Not the end of the world, but it does make things easier. So we've got a little shape in our tube. Now it's time to reinstall. So I always like to start with the valve. So we'll find our valve hole in the rim. You can see that visually from the inside and outside. And we'll grab our valve, and we're just going to go ahead, pull the tire to the side, just like so, and then we're going to go ahead and insert the valve into the rim. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to tuck the tube into the rim using our fingers, into the tire and rim. And so we're just going to tuck it in. Doesn't have to be precise right now. We're just trying to get it into some kind of shape where it will stay in place and not fall out. So that's pretty good. You can see like this section sticking out. That's okay. You go back through, and we're just going to tuck it into place. Once it's basically tucked into place, as much as you can, get it hidden, then we're going to need to pop the tire bead back into the rim. So I like to start at the valve as well. So what I do is I push up on the valve, and that's just going to make sure that the tube is tucked up as far as it can be here, and that's going to help us pop this bead back into place. Now a lot of times when you start it out, you can just do it with your fingers, and it'll start popping right back on. But if not, that's where your tire levers come back in handy. If you do have to use your tire levers, you just want to be sure that you're not pinching the tube when you're doing this work. So what you do is you stick the lever up underneath the rim, and you will push, hold that with your thumb, and you'll go around, and you will push, push, push. And you can even hold it in place and then just pull down, and that will also seat the tire into place. If you can do it with your thumbs, it's just a little better for the tube, a little less having an object in there to puncture that tube under pressure. It's not where we want to be. So if you can do it with your thumbs, do it as far as you can. Eventually they're going to get to a point where it gets tight here. Some tires are a little looser, and you won't have to do that. Most tires require a little bit of effort here. And if you've got strong thumbs, you can go through and you can pop it all on with your thumbs. But we have these tire levers, might as well use them. So here is where we are going to want to, first of all, take your tire lever, and we're just going to actually push the tube up into the recess there as far as possible. And then we're going to take our lever take our hand, we're going to hold the tire on one end where the tire is still out. And we're going to take our lever here, and we're actually just going to pry up, and we're going to push that bead into the wheel. We're going to pry up, push that in. And if you don't hold it on this end, you'll just end up chasing yourself all the way around the wheel. So we're going to pry. And it'll get harder the closer you get to where your hand is, and it'll get tighter as well. So you may actually have to lift up a little bit to get the lever in there. And as it gets tighter, you want to be really careful. You don't want to go too fast because you're more likely to pinch your tube doing it that way. So there we are. We have everything seated on there. Now I like to go through and visually inspect and make sure that the tube isn't sticking in between the rim and the tire. And you can do that by just looking down into the rim by pushing the tire back a little bit. And hopefully the tube is stuck up into the tire so much that we don't see it sticking down. If it is, we can take our lever and we can actually pry on the tube and get it up into the tire itself. And you can do that on both sides, visually inspecting, looking down, making sure we don't see the tube. Now if you're having a lot of issues, there's a lot of tube showing, you can add a little bit more pressure. That'll give the tube a little bit more shape, and that'll hopefully help it stick up into the tire a little better. Now at this point, I like to add a little bit of pressure to my wheel. Not too much, we just want to give it a little bit more shape. I'm just going to add about 20 psi. I don't know if you heard that, but there was a little pop. That is the bead seating into the tire itself. At this point, I've added enough pressure, or it's starting to seat, starting to take shape, and I'll just give it a quick spin and look at the tire itself. Now you may notice there's, especially around the bead, there's always a strip of rubber here where the bead on the tire is, and you can visually check that line, and you can see it wavering a little bit. If it's still stuck in, it's a little low, that's okay. As we add pressure, that'll pop up. What we don't want to see is that bead up too high, because once we add pressure, that can pop off and cause issues. So that's where, if you saw a high section, you could go through with your thumbs and just push on the tire a little bit. Usually it'll seat right down. So that's what we're doing here. Just a little bit of pressure. We want to make sure everything looks good. There's one low spot here, but as we add pressure, that should pop out. So now I'm going to go ahead, everything looks really good. I'm going to go ahead and add more pressure. There's another pop as it seats. I've got this at about 90 right now. We're just going to give it one last visual inspection before we finish it off. The bead looks good on both sides, so then you can go ahead, go up to your max pressure, and you're pretty much set. Now the last thing you're going to want to do, if it's a Presta valve, you're going to want to close that nut, and then you can add in your valve nut that keeps the rim, or the valve tight against the rim, prevents rattling, and then you can go ahead and put your cap back on there. That just keeps debris, mud, dirt out of the valve. If it's a Schrader, you're just going to go ahead and throw your cap on there. Some new Schraders have a valve nut as well. So make sure those are tight, and you are good to go. Before you put the wheel back on, you can do one more visual inspection now that the tire is inflated, just to make sure you didn't miss anything. But it should be good to go. And yeah, thanks for watching, and happy trails, y'all.